Hi, my name is Anthony Wong and this is my helicopter build tryout video. So if I'm using a kit, why did I choose this kit as opposed to others? So before I tell you which kit I would choose, let me tell you about all the 2025 Science Olympiad kits for a helicopter that are available. So first, J&H. So they released two for 2025, the J&H Tornado and the J&H Twister. So first, you can see like the price difference, $20 more. And the flight times are 80 and 90 compared to 50 and 60. The J&H Tornado is marginally harder to build than the J&H Twister. I've read like their build PDF, and Tornado seems like really hard to build, but it performs the best. This J&H Tornado is a paddle-bladed coaxial helicopter. J&H is also a paddle-bladed coaxial helicopter, but the paddle blades here are wooden compared to the J&H Tornado, which is like the film material. The Guru is $45, and as you can see, this blade is like one entire piece, as opposed to the J&H paddle blade design. However, it is still coaxial. The Freedom Flight model kits are launching the second week of October. The 2017 design that they launched was coaxial with an X rotor and a tapered tip. So basically, I'm going to see if the Freedom Flight Model 1 is better than the J&H Tornado, because I would probably choose this one to build. Freedom Flight has been like most of the top 10 in nationals were Freedom Flight for helicopter, and J&H was there too. So we'll see how the Freedom Flight one comes out to be. So how do I plan to tune my helicopter, and what problems do I anticipate running into? So what variables would I likely alter to achieve different results? So first of all, the center of gravity location adjustment. So basically, shifting the center of gravity would affect the balance. The rotors at the top and bottom, since it's a dual rotor design, they provide lift. The rubber motor is probably coiled around or near the middle of the helicopter body, which gives it power when it winds. The center of gravity should be basically around the middle of the body, and this would be the point where the weight is the most evenly distributed between the rotors. So if the center of gravity is like too high, if it's closer to the top rotor, the helicopter would probably tip or wobble as it like ascends. If the center of gravity is too low, like more closer to the bottom, the helicopter might not spin as smoothly, basically. So you want it to be in like the Goldilocks spot where right between the two rotors. This is usually around the shaft point or where the rubber motor is, like around here. So in order to do this, I would probably adjust things like the weight of the helicopter body. How I would do this is I would like add small weights, maybe like here or like here, to basically adjust the center of gravity. I could also change the length of my rubber motor, and by doing this, I would get the balance to be just right so it flies straight and steady. So here's a problem that I might run into, a scenario. If the helicopter would pitch up excessively, okay, let's say it like goes up very fast and like way too much, I would probably shift the center of gravity to be forward and adding a small weight near the front rotor. This would allow the center of gravity to be more shifted towards the top, or I could basically just adjust the rubber motor attachment to be slightly forward, and this would allow the helicopter to be more stabilized and it wouldn't really pitch up too much. Here are some other terms that I may consider. Incidence settings. This is basically the angle that the rotor blades are set, which is like this. I could like change it a little bit. This would probably impact like lift and flight. Airframe weight. This is basically the weight of the helicopter. I would probably measure this like every single time to make sure nothing is wrong. Or if I were to add like weight to it. Initial rubber length. I'll explain like a calculation later, but this is basically the length of the rubber band I used. Turns. This is the number of times the rubber band is like turned before flight. So like the winder is maybe like 15:1 ratio or like 10-to-1 gear ratio. And then turns will be like maybe like 300 or 400. Back up torque is basically the rotational force that's created by the rubber motor, the rubber band. Basically, it will contribute to the helicopter's power. So maybe a higher torque will make it like spin faster. So it may pitch up excessively if we have too much torque. Back off turns is basically the number of turns that's like backed off from the maximum winding to prevent the rubber from breaking and to optimize flight time. So for helicopter, theoretically, you want like almost no back off turns for this to be the most efficient. And turns remaining. So basically, this is just the number of turns still left in the rubber band after the flight. So that's like how much energy was not used. So I would probably measure this after every time. Basically, all of this I would probably measure. So how much time am I willing to spend each week to practice trimming? When? Time commitment is quite important. So basically, I can do 2 hours weekly on Saturdays. So basically, I'm allotting Saturday mornings and afternoons to test builds. So for helicopter, it may be longer than 2 hours, depending on the time commitments my other 3 builds will require. Or if also weekday practices are scheduled as the season would progress more, I would attend as many of those as I can, in addition to my 2-hour Saturday testing sessions. Do I know any place where I would be able to trim my helicopter? So I have a room in my house with a flat obstacle-free ceiling that I could test my helicopter's stability when it like meets the ceiling with. And that's like one testing to find the optimal amount of turns for the climb of the helicopter to ensure there's not like too much torque or like the stability is kind of bad. I can travel half a mile over to Gomes Park during 1 mile per hour wind sunrises. This way there will be like no air resistance, and I can observe the climbing speed and basically ensure I would have a stable flight when I go to like a higher gym roof or something like that. So let me talk freely about helicopter. So in helicopter, I would want to build to minimum weight always. And for winding techniques, to get the maximum torque into the rubber bands, I would do like very aggressive winding. The length and weight of the rubber band would basically be the average linear density. And you can measure the length of the rubber band, like if you have a rubber band here, and then you can loop it. So for example, if this was 33 inches in total, this one loop would be 16. And then you would have like 1 inch for the knot and maybe like 1 inch to cut off. And then I would take this, I would weigh it with like this thing, and then I would divide it by 33. So that would basically give me the average linear density. And if I'm like buying different types of rubber, and then I could basically calculate the average linear density and see which one would be the best for optimizing flight time for a helicopter. Thank you for listening.